Welcome to the Sanctum Secorum reading room. Whether you are new to the literary world of Appendix N, a diehard fan of the genre, or even just tuning in to see how certain titles tie into a particular set of role-playing games, we invite you to join us as we dive into the history and influences of Appendix N. We'd like to open our library to you and inspire readers to explore these new worlds. I am one of your hosts, Keeper Bob, and our other keeper of mysteries this evening is, of course, Keeper Jen.
Good evening.
How you doing
Uh,
tonight, Jen?
I am functioning? Question mark. Um, it's been a really long day, but this show is pretty much what's kept me going. Just wanted to remind the folks out there in Twitterverse watching us tonight that we have the channel points that you can redeem for, weird trivia facts, or you can make Bob sing a song or something. I don't know. I,
Now wait a
I don't
minute
know.
here. I make you sing a song. That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, yay.
So you're going to do that. Well, to let folks know, tonight we are voyaging into a tale praised by H.P. Lovecraft, the old man of Providence himself. We are, of course, talking about The House on the Borderland by
From 1908. This
by
is
William
perhaps
Hope Hodgson. Why don't you tell us about it, Jen?
this is perhaps the greatest of all Mr. Hodgson's works. It tells of a lonely and evilly regarded house in Ireland, which forms a focus for hideous otherworld forces and sustains a siege by blasphemous hybrid anomalies from a hidden abyss below. The wanderings of the narrator's spirit through limitless light years of cosmic space and kelpus of eternity, and its witnessing, or his witnessing, of the solar system's final destruction constitutes something almost unique in standard literature. And everywhere there is manifest the author's power to suggest vague, ambushed horrors in natural scenery. But for a few touches of commonplace sentimentality, this book would be a classic of the first water. And that, of course, is the quote and write up given to it by Mr. Lovecraft.
Indeed,
And I hate you
in
all for
his
including the word kalpas. Kalpas. What?
so Kalpas is it is a time period in both it appears in both the Hindu and Buddhist faiths.
Mm-hmm.
It refers to a duration of time, a complete cosmic cycle from the origination to the destruction of a world system. So yes, it
Sure.
covers quite a bit of space. Speaking of quite a bit of space, let's start with William Hope Hodgson himself, born 15 November 1877, died either the 17th or 19th of April 1918.
Gotta love military records.
Yeah, he was the son of Reverend Samuel Hodgson, who was an Anglican priest, and Lizzie Sarah Brown, second of 12 children.
Whew.
Reverend Hodgson served in many parishes, including Adrahan, County Galway, Ireland, which serves as the setting for the House on the Borderland.
That's what it is. Okay.
Mhm. He attempted to run off to sea at the age of 13. And the next year, in 1891, he apprenticed as a cabin boy with his father's consent. And he served a 4-year apprenticeship and then 2 years of training and got his master's certificate. He was an honest to goodness sailor.
Unfortunately, while he was at sea, his father passed away. So he came home to support both his mother and his sister. And it's suspected, with a lack of a whole lot of materials to do a bibliography on him, or a biography rather, it's suspected that that's when he turned to writing as a method to support his family.
Well, and while he was a sailor, let's not forget his first, for example, his first writings were nonfiction. They were on the subject of fitness, and essentially because he was short, slight, and fair of face, he was often targeted for bullying by older sailors, and he pursued fitness as sort of a form of self-defense. And the quote, and I love the quote, the primary motivation of his body development was not health, but self-defense. His relatively short height and sensitive, almost beautiful face made him an irresistible target for bullying seamen. When they moved in to pulverize him, they would learn too late that they had come to grips with easily one of the most powerful men, pound for pound, in all England. And I mean, this in 1898, he was awarded a medal for heroism. A sailor had fallen from the topmast into shark-infested waters off the coast of New Zealand, and he simply dove in and saved him. So this is an author who literally dove into shark-infested waters to save someone else's life.
Well, and it's important to note that the writings that he was doing, like the health and quote unquote physical culture, it was equivalent to the modern bodybuilding magazines.
Oh, indeed. I mean, we're talking like even pre-Charles Atlas days, but still that sort of thing, right? Ye old
Yes.
large dummy bells. In 1902, he appeared on stage with Houdini, handcuffing him and chaining him so soundly that Houdini later claimed that Hodgson had injured him and had deliberately jammed the locks. Hodgson was known for providing physical training to the local police department and obviously was on their side when Houdini came to humiliate them.
Okay. That's really interesting. So he may have picked up a little bit of that bullying tendency, perhaps?
Well, or just didn't want to see his friends belittled.
That's fair. That's fair. I did catch something in some writings from his siblings that they always remembered William as reading when he was a child, which was really interesting to me because he wasn't part of high society or what we would call a literary family. But man, he wrote the. See, I'm torn here, Bob, because we did The House on the Borderland.
Mm-hmm.
Why did we not go with something like The Ghost Pirates? He is most known for his sea horror, his adventures at sea,
He is certainly well known for that subject, but The House on the Borderland is considered one of his best works.
And to that point, it is speculated that the publication order of his novels, this being his second, it's thought that they were published in reverse order of his writing. So while this was done in 1908, yeah, it could have actually been written really close to that date with his later works, like The Nightland, which was his first major novel work. That would have put that written closer to 1903 than the publication date 20 years later.
Well, to call The Nightland a major novel is an understatement. It was 200,000 words.
I said major.
Immense. It is preponderant. I mean, the abridgment of it is 20,000 words, and that's
a good size novel.
That's a good size, novel or novella.
Novella, yeah.
And it's kind of hard to tell how long he was actually writing versus when he was published. His earliest dated published piece was nonfiction, Health from Scientific Exercise, in 1903, and his fiction appeared in 1904. But some of his later works, like the last of his works to see print, were unpublished poems, and they appeared in 2005. So there was this huge body of work when he passed away, and his literary estate has worked to keep him in print. The best known edition of House on the Borderland is from Arkham House, which was all about keeping people in print.
Makes perfect sense. One of the other newer publications was a Captain Galt story that hadn't seen the light of day, and that was published within Terrors of the Sea back in 1996. So that was kind of fun, and I wouldn't mind reading the Captain Galt stories or you know, the sea-based stuff, but he also created Carnacki, sorry, the Ghost Finder,
He
which
did.
was very Sherlockian in nature.
And despite his career as a sailor, when World War One rolled around, there was no way he was going back to sea. And he was commissioned as a lieutenant in the Royal Artillery, and
Okay.
he was killed by the direct impact of an artillery shell at the Fourth Battle of Ypres, Ypres, in April 1918. So just think about that for a minute. He took a direct artillery hit. So it might be that he was killed on the 17th and parts were still raining down until the 19th. I mean, that's,
Ew.
well, that's, if he went
That's
like he
war, baby.
wanted
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
horribly.
Yeah.
Uh,
And that was 1918, you said? He had only been married for 5 years, and that puts him at dying around age 39 or 40. Getting married at 35 years old back then, that was incredibly late.
yeah,
And I was doing a bit of studying on the themes in his writings throughout his career and his attitude towards women in his stories. At first, it was, oh, they need love, they need protection, and they were more damsel in distress types. Later in his publications, I should say, maybe not later in his writings, but through the years, they made a tangible shift to, oh, they're wily, they're treacherous, they're deceitful.
well,
So it makes me wonder if that has something to do with the not getting married till he was 35.
or yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
That is fair.
Just gonna put that out there.
So let's talk then about this book. I mean, this is the first piece by Hodgson I ever read. It is still by far and away my favorite. I love this book.
It
Um,
is indeed the only piece of his I have read so far. I'm not sure that it's my favorite piece, but I can appreciate it for what it is, right?
hey,
Which
I
is
just want to point
highly
out, if it's the
influential.
only piece by him you've read, it is both your favorite and least favorite piece. It is Schrodinger's William Hope Hodgson story, right? But I mean,
Okay. So
this
I,
is the
I I feel
story.
like I need to read more from him before I can claim him as like a favorite author. Is that fair?
That's fair, but I mean, this is a story that was cited by Terry Pratchett as the Big Bang Theory in his private universe as science fiction and fantasy reader and later writer. He was a known influence to people like Clark Ashton Smith, and I mean, Clark Ashton Smith, right? I mean, that's really all that needs to be said there. Um,
So Lovecraft didn't see him as an influence? I totally would have
Lovecraft
thought.
so certainly, like, the sense of cosmic horror in this story kind of paves the way for Lovecraft, but Lovecraft hadn't read him until 1934, 3 years before he died. Lovecraft was already well and established before he had ever found and read Hodgson. um,
Interesting.
which is kind of
Mm.
interesting when you look at the more cosmic sections of this story
Yeah,
and the
that
red orbs
parallel,
that
right?
circle the sun. That is very, very reminiscent, to me at least, of Azathoth at the center of the universe, feeling very, very Lovecraftian, but not really an influence so much as appreciated by Lovecraft.
Okay. Now I will say that the first few happenings that we got into seemed almost episodic, and I was cool with that. When we got to the cosmic horror stuff, I'm just that's a little tougher for me to follow because it's less tangible, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't have that frame of reference, so I become detached and I no longer cared about any of the characters except for Pepper the dog.
Well, before we leap to the mid and end game of the story, yeah, I mean this was adapted by DC Vertical Comics in 2000, although
Mhm.
they wrote their own ending for it. The BBC did a
Interesting.
four-part serial of it in 2007, and it was released as a solitaire board game in 2020 in an issue of Lurker magazine. And now I
What?
really need to hunt that down.
What?
Yes, a
Oh,
solo
God.
board game. Uh, there's
Hey,
also a
Christmas list for everybody.
Yep. There's also a doom metal band called Electric Wizard,
Mhm.
and in 2008 they released a song of the same name inspired by the house on the borderland. And it is like 11 minutes of weird, freaky doom music that is just fantastic. They're out of, I want to say, Plymouth in the UK. Got a link here. I'll drop it into chat so folks can check them out. But very, very cool. It was released as a single with another band. Um, and then you're right. We get to kind of the episodes, and those early episodes with the swine things, and it is capital S swine, or the things. There's a lot of interesting use of capitalization to stress various points, and they turn out to be really chilling and sinister on the page. Whereas when things like that are normally adapted for like television or movies, they lose a lot. They look kind of ridiculous, right? Pig people running around just look kind of
Yeah.
stupid. But the narrator, the recluse, his sense of dread and revulsion truly enhanced everything for me. The whole build up of seeing the eyes glistening or seeing the pale skin as they looked in through the window. And let's face it, that's creepy too, right? Peeping Tom monsters coming around your house in the dead of night, trying the doors. Home invasion by monster.
Right, right. The just like with a lot of horror stories or mysteries, I found myself, "Come on, why aren't you looking at this yet? Why is it taking so long to circle back over to the cellar? Come on." And then it was kind of anticlimactic when he did because his I mean, the whole cosmic thing came up the night he was reading the Bible.
Right.
And let's not get into
But yeah, but the basement wasn't really anticlimactic, right? I mean, he went down there
eh,
and he searched it once and it was okay. And then he went down again and he found this gaping trap door. I mean, he did everything that you would hope an intelligent person would do in a horror story. In some ways, it reminded me of Phantasm, in that the characters in Phantasm aren't idiots waiting to die, and so he's nailing things shut. He's bracing doors. He's making sure everything is locked. But there is kind of a question that runs in my mind through the entirety of the story, from the very beginning to its trippy mid and end points, and that is this really happening? I mean, this is a man in his late 40s, early 50s, living with his elderly sister, and there's a dreamlike quality to so many things that he calls visions, and then he sees people
hmm.
that aren't there. Is this really happening, or are there just some weird vapors rising up from this well beneath the house, this cursed house that is possessed, according to the locals, possessed by the fairies?
That that just sparked a really interesting brain weasel of my own, Bob. Was Pepper ever really there?
Oh God. Um,
When the dog accompanied him down into the pit and he relied on the dog's reaction for, should I be alerted? Should I be scared? Oh, the dog's fine, so I should be too. Considering what happens to poor Pepper throughout the course of this, um, I now that you have put that little thread of doubt in my mind, I might appreciate this story a little bit more
yeah, I
because
mean,
it totally reeks of fairy fantasy, and the cosmic stuff is just a bad trip, really.
well, and let's face it, it's been in print for 114 years, so
Spoilers, yeah, okay.
Spoilers we're a little late for spoilers, but we can say without giving too much away that if you're an animal in this book, it ends poorly.
No, whatever power is at play here, it really does not like animals, especially those on 4 feet.
Yes, I mean there's a cat that
Yeah.
gets incinerated. There's Pepper falls to ash and dust, and so yes, did Pepper really go down into that cavern with him and perhaps was overwhelmed or drowned? I mean, they were in a tunnel that flooded. It knocked him off his feet, and yet somehow Pepper was able to pull him out and get out. There's really a fantastical quality that leaves me thinking that this is definitely an unreliable narrator. And
Unreliable is a good word. No, unreliable is too polite. But speaking of narrators, the whole thing is introduced to us by a different narrator, right? They find these writings. And I mean, I will say that the old style writing, it was so much more accessible to me than, say, some of the Vancian stuff, although there were some made up verb transitions in there. The rest of it was just slightly archaic regular language.
And those might have been archaic verb transitions.
Yeah, right. I don't have the OED handy at my fingertips right now, but they're just slightly less common than what we would know right now in the 2020s, right? The punctuation use was also entertaining.
Wow, there was a sentence with 5 commas and a semicolon.
Two semicolons.
Not in the sense I was thinking. It was 1 semicolon.
Oh, no, I was thinking of the other book that was part of that story, or the other story
Yeah,
part of that collection.
Don't even get into that. But
I was just taking a
King
sampling.
Says, it's a lot of Shatner commas. He does. As a matter of fact, reading this, I read this a lot, and so the commas really do set the tone for the emphasis of various things and pauses, and so it certainly reads like it is read aloud. Although sometimes you even have to drop some of the commas because you're like, and then maybe I could say 2 words at a time. So there was that, but it is a wonderful story for reading aloud because the way it is written really focuses the narration in that fashion.
It has indeed been an entertaining weekend with that.
Yeah, and it's not too terribly long. We were talking 100 pages. It's not bad for reading aloud.
But no, besides the punctuation use, the other entertaining part for me, and I'm using that word a lot because I'm tired, I apologize. My internal thesaurus is kind of wiped out. The person who finds these writings inserts some editorial comments throughout. And
sort of.
One of the publications that we came across had omitted these and threw them in as like footnotes or afterthoughts at the very end of the entire book because they thought they were actually editorial comments from the like original editors back in 1908.
To be fair, they only put in numbered footnotes with no corresponding information. It was just 1.
Oh,
nothing.
God, that's
2,
right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So that was
some of these small presses are a little dubious on that. Make sure you're not getting something that's abridged. Make sure you're getting the full printing.
This is what happens with things that are in the public domain.
That is true. Public domain is so love-hate relationship.
And as for your personal thesaurus, I lost counts how many times something happened suddenly. It's over and over and over again. There were certain things that he would suddenly this happened, and then a chapter later, suddenly this happened. 3 paragraphs later, suddenly this happened. So
I honestly didn't notice that because there were so many paragraphs full of other descriptions. And again, the cosmic horror, those descriptions of all of the visuals, I think this is something that would translate well to film because I would like to have a better frame of reference for it besides just the color out of space.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this would translated to film, this would certainly be the visuals would be akin to something out of Doctor Strange, right? I mean, we are talking about a man who watches the sun rise and set faster and faster and faster until it is a flaming comet crossing the sky, and the stars are moving so much they are threads of light, and the world becomes permanent twilight. He watches the world crumble away over millions of years. And this is where we get into the, did this really happen? Or is he just stoned out of his mind?
What was he drinking while reading the Bible late at night?
Well, and
And
there are several occasions of this, right? There is the
yeah.
first vision where he is transported across the void through space and time and sees a replica or another version of the house, yet it is massive and made out of some strange green stone with large, gigantic gods looming over it. And it isn't until the end of the story that he realizes that the attacks that he has been suffering on the house are mere um, echoes of the attacks on the greater structure at the center of the universe, at this sea of sleep, I think he called it.
See, yeah, and that's where you lose me. I mean, I enjoy after the fact. Did this really happen? Go outside and look. There's claw and teeth marks on the door jamb outside. I I need that to sink my teeth into, to sink my brain into it. Otherwise, the disbelief just overpowers everything.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it's why I
I
feel he's unreliable, but not necessarily um, lying. I mean, he is in so many respects. He is exactly what you would want in this situation. What? There's something attacking the house? Right then, I've got guns. I'm going to go up on the roof and shoot them. And he does. He does everything
and
that he
bar
should
the
do.
doors and yeah.
But then you have the way his sister is reacting, and the way she seems more afraid of him than anything going on around the house, because she doesn't even seem to notice these things are happening, but she is afraid of him to the point where he needs
Yeah.
to lock her in her room because she tried to flee the house, which to him was, don't unlock the door and let the monsters in, but to her may very well have been, I'm already locked
Self-preservation.
in with a monster.
Oh, yeah. And she did take care of the dog when it got scratched.
The second dog, the dog they never named.
Oh, yeah. It was so important it didn't get a name. Even the cat got a name, and it was only there for half a scene.
Yeah, the cat,
But
we were introduced to the cat, half a page later the cat was dead. So yeah,
I yeah, it's a little bit yeah. I like I said, it's hard to really sink my brain into it with a feeling of I want to be on any side. I want to root for a side. Um, really killing off the last of the animals, and then this guy's still kind of in his own little world. I'm not buying that. I will
well,
buy that he is in an altered state and his sister is worried about him. And again, was Pepper actually there?
and then we have, the other dog gets this weird fungal growth infection that is
After
spread to
getting bitten?
him,
Mhm.
and by the end, as the infection is now spread up his arm and is encroaching on his face, as he is begging forgiveness from God because he is going to kill himself only to spare himself this final blasphemous pain. After reading the Bible, and he's to that point, and then there is more. And it just, it's so
Suddenly
dark.
there is more, right?
But the story sort of ebbs and flows, and so despite the unreality of the situations, the story itself feels real, especially the first half where he's like, something's attacked the house. Now I've protected the house. I'm going to slowly go searching after I've gathered my courage over a few days. I don't see anything, and he
And
creeps further
those
out.
moments of real life I can dig. The dreamlike states are where you kind of lose me
Well,
because
I mean, it really
it
had sort of a dizzying use, right, of the solar system and
effective.
space and the green star that is at the center of the universe, and and the whole thing serves to give it this sense of isolation and loneliness. As if we take him at his word that he is had this vision of losing his body and traveling millions of years into the future as this incorporeal spirit that is watching the planets collide with the sun and explode, and then traveling beyond to the very center of the universe. And then he sees the faces in the red orbs, and then he sees the face of his love, and there is the sentimentality that Lovecraft was talking about. I mean,
I
that
could
was
I could see this
that was the weird
translating
part, I think.
to the graphic novel pretty well too,
Well, I
because it
just
it does seem kind of interspatial that DC can handle that, right? Um, but so many of these scenes and sequences, I mean, I can see where there are clearly inspirations for later authors, including some we've even covered earlier this year throughout the show. Uh, there's aspects from it in The Citadel of Fear, which was 1918. So that was, kind of a recent inspiration for him. Uh, there was that story from the Liber collection, Diary in the Snow, that we both really dug,
oh
that
yeah,
had so much of this, okay, we're isolated and weird things are happening at night.
and talk about snow. There's a portion in the story where the editor's like, yeah, so based on what he's saying, that's not really snow. The atmosphere is frozen and fallen to the ground. I'm not sure how he's hearing anything, though, because without any atmosphere, there's nothing to carry sound, but we're just going to go with that. Just the
Yeah.
romantic portion of it, though, right? The love of his life refused to move with him to this house, this remote, isolated house. And so he's like, well, if I moved someplace else, would you come? And she never answers. But
Hmm.
she comes to him twice in the Sea of Dreams, once millions of years later. And again, this gets to maybe not a healthy relationship, maybe not a healthy mind.
Yeah,
With him having
from the
visions.
character, the author, sir.
I was thinking the character. We're talking about, the narrator is millions of years in the future, millions, if not billions of years in the future. He is just a floating spirit, and yet she comes to him, and he can't explain why. And he even questions that. Why is she here? How am I seeing her? Why does she have a body when I don't? How is this possible? And then the green sun is eclipsed and she vanishes. And that is the last time he sees her. There's so many weird
Uh,
moments.
mhm.
It is very 60s psychedelia, really. I mean, this
Before
is
its time.
yeah, this is something with like lava lamps on the screen moving. It
Thank
is
you.
it is definitely odd in that fashion.
It is
And
it is a bad trip.
well, and the surreality of it really does plant that seed of doubt, whether it is real or imaginings. But when you get to the initial narrator, the fisherman, the guys on vacation who just went fishing and found this book, they are convinced that the story is true. And then when they ask at the village and they're getting information, well, there was this weird guy
Mhm.
and he lived with his elderly sister and he never came to town, and someone made deliveries and brought him supplies once a month. And then once he went out, and the entire house was gone. It had collapsed into this void beneath, and now there is just a lake. And
See, he
it
lived with his sister. No mention of a dog.
fair. He also came by mule train, so let's keep that in mind. But in some ways, that the decrepitness and the fall of the house to me echoes the House of Usher, right? The fall of the House of Usher, with this huge, immense, old family home, this manse that is old beyond reckoning, that finally just collapses into pieces and is utterly destroyed.
Times
And
like this, I wish we were actually doing the Sanctum Secorum show where we dig into the DCC stuff, because, oh, I have so many thoughts.
well, yes, there's many things that could be stated, and one of our
So
listeners
many.
comment that swine things will probably be making an appearance.
Yeah, but
Uh,
so many existing adventures that I feel have already used this as inspiration, and it's a tangible connection there. Uh, which setting in this story was your favorite? I mean,
well,
or I should say, which scene, perhaps?
setting wise, I preferred the pieces at the house, the more grounded horror to the cosmic emptiness. While that portion is interesting, to me the more horrific aspect is the things as they're trying to get in, or the swine thing god that is controlling him and making him unlock the door slowly. This massive door that he has barred with
Yeah.
3 bolts, and then he hears this sound and he looks down, and without realizing it, he is using his foot to open the bolt at the base of the door. Those moments, that utter horror of being controlled and inevitably moving towards your doom, really, really resonate. And yeah, I mean, that's the good stuff right there.
Exactly. That I can get behind. So my last question for you, Bob. Is there a William Hope Hodgson story that you would now like to read on your own after this?
Well, I mean, I've read most of them. I suppose I haven't read The Nightland, although we have a copy. Um, and so I might
200,000
finally,
pages?
I might, well, I
Or
do read
words,
fairly
not
quick.
pages. Oh, wow.
No, it is not 200,000 pages. It is,
Yep,
I mean,
Jen's a little
that would
loopy.
be twice as long as the Internal Revenue Code. Um, or the regs rather.
Yeah.
No, I think, but the Nightland is considered his other great work, and maybe it's time that I finally take the plunge and read that, or perhaps I could dive back into the Carnegie stories, which are fun. Um, Maybe even his poetry. I've never read any of his poetry, and as he was inspirational to Clark Ashton Smith, perhaps there is something to his poetry as well.
Well, I will pose this question to our listeners and our viewers as well. Post a link in here to the full list of works by Hodgson. I think I would go with, I wouldn't mind getting into Carnacki because I'm all about the Sherlockian stuff. But I'm really interested in something like The Derelict or The Island of the Crossbones. The short stories are usually more punchy for me too.
Well, that's fair. That is truly fair. Um, and his short stories are solid. I mean, if you look at the early portions of this book, if you just take like up to the raid on the house by the swine things,
It's
and
episodic, yeah.
afterwards, that could certainly be punchy as a short story in and of itself. Sure.
Honestly, I think I would have preferred it, uh, yeah, without all of the cosmic parts to it. that really pulled me out of the whole story.
But that is sort of the main
But
thrust of the
I
story, right? I mean
know,
that
I
that
know.
these pig things, as it's revealed, are part of a greater cosmic whole that
Yeah.
is attacking this house elsewhere, and that this house is not merely a house but a reflection of something greater. Uh, it really is.
I
I can
think
see
that
why
could have been
Lovecraft
accomplished
enjoyed
in
this.
fewer words, though.
Well,
Uh,
yes, I mean the chapters. I think there were like 8 or 9 chapters in a row of "I am everything, I see everything." So I do get that could have
yeah.
perhaps benefited
Yeah.
from a little bit of brevity, but
An editor.
overall,
Yes.
but overall, still my favorite work by Hodgson.
Well, speaking of more books, uh,
Yeah,
tonight we are announcing the winner of last month's second giveaway, which was a copy of Jack of Shadows by Roger Zelazny. And the lucky winner of this one is going to be Chris Zank. Awesome. Chris will email you shortly to get details and mail your prize out to you. And you join the wonderful ranks of winners of special stuff. Um, and I believe it is time once again to announce our next pair of giveaways. One for the live audience and the other for all of our viewers and listeners. And Elena, you ready for us? It is time to enter the Sanctum Secorum's very own
Prize Closet of Mystery.
I love it. Now, as a reminder, everyone watching the show live is eligible for both of the live giveaway and our monthly drawing. Tonight's first prize is a copy of, you guessed it, The House on the Borderland.
with weird footnotes.
And it's been lovingly read.
Yes.
The copy goes to the live viewer who can correctly guess the answer to this question. Take it away, Bob.
Which of the following is the title of one of Hodgson's Carnacki, the Ghost Finder stories?
Ooh.
A. The House in the Nightland. B. The Whistling Room. C. Mycroft and Moran. D. The Thing in the Weeds.
Ooh.
So that is out there to our viewers. A, B, C, or D. Let's see if let's see if anyone has survived the cosmic horror that was
Right.
drifting through the universe. And while folks are thinking of that, again, the title of one of Hodgson's Carnacki, the Ghost Finder stories. As we as they ponder that, if you are watching the show and didn't win our live trivia question, or you are listening to a replay in the lead up to our next episode, you can enter to win our monthly drawing simply by dropping an email to thehub@sanctum.media with your name. Entry should have the subject line Prize Closet of Mystery. And this month's drawing prize is a copy of Robin Wayne Bailey's Swords Against the Shadowland, which was licensed as Book 8 in the Fawford and Grey Mouser stories. So I'm seeing a lot of people that probably already have their own copies of The House on the Borderland. But
That is true.
so I'm going to say I'm going to give it a going, gone, and then we will extend it to a double drawing.
Ooh, I like that.
And so last chance for the live listeners. Was it The House in the Nightland, The Whistling Room, Mycroft and Moran, or The Thing in the Weeds?
Keeping in mind it's a Sherlockian tale.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it is
okay.
going once,
And
going twice. And we have stumped the live audience, and we will be putting the book in as part of our drawing. The answer, by the way, was The Whistling Room. Mycraft and Moran was an imprint of Arkham House that published a collection of Carnacki stories. And The Thing in the Weeds is a Sargasso Sea story. And The House in the Nightland was me just throwing together two different book titles. Although there's a lot of house titled stories.
Yeah, there are.
So since we stumped the audience there, why don't we talk about what we should read for next month?
Ooh, we should have the poll thingy, right?
Well, we announce we read them first and then do a poll, because otherwise we blink.
I get excited. Don't blame me.
Next month for December, it is truly a meritocracy.
No.
Meritocracy. Yes.
You don't get that. No, see, we were going to do like something horror based, like little ghost stories for Christmas or something, but there's not really anything accessible to everybody. And I didn't want a bunch of, we didn't want a bunch of stories that were written by various authors that just confuses everything. So I've been chomping at the bit to do more merit. So yeah, we're going with merit.
Merit, yes. So we have 4 different merit stories to choose from. There is Dwellers in the Mirage, Burn Witch Burn, The Face in the Abyss, and The Ship of Ishtar. Those are our choices for the poll this evening.
All of them fairly easy to get your hands on if need
All of them are available for free online through Project Gutenberg.
Oh, even better.
So anybody can get them. Anybody can read them.
And don't forget those channel points. You can use them to weigh your votes, or you can still poke Bob for random facts.
And right now it looks like we're going to be reading Burn Witch Burn. It's
neck and neck. We're just about halfway there.
Oh, and okay, a random fact. Okay. All right, here's a random fact about Abraham Merritt. There was a pulp, which was a Merritt, I believe, fantasy. And he had absolutely nothing to do with it.
It was just named for him.
It was just named for him. He had nothing to do with it. He never had a story appear in it. He didn't edit it. It was just named for him. And so we will be reading Burn Witch Burn for our next episode, which is Tuesday, December 20th, just in time for Christmas. Let's burn witches.
I mean, it's a little late for October if we really want to think of all of that. But no,
nothing says the holidays like throwing a witch on the Yule log.
This is where we're not talking about the DCC adventures, right?
Right. But to be clear,
like last year's holiday moth
is definitely a creepy story, and there is a tradition of ghost stories and creepy stories at Christmas. And so there is that. And recent Goody winner, Judge Eric Young, asks, and what do we burn beside witches? We burn wood. And witches are made of wood. Meritmania. Yes.
That's so much better. Thank you.
I liked a meritocracy.
No. I mean, okay. Maybe it was a bad choice on my part.
Yes, I was, but you're stuck with me now.
Yeah. I will let everyone else decide. Maybe next month you guys can start hitting us up with your choices for different authors, etc. You can also email us with suggestions on books to cover for future months.
And I have into the chat, I have dropped the link for Burn Witch Burn on Project Gutenberg, although you are more than welcome to get your own very nice hard copy of the book, because it's Merit, and while Merit stuff is certainly a little hard to find in physical bookstores, it is not difficult to find online.
Oh, Eric, we were doing so well.
Merit badges. Oh, I like that. I like merit badges.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, might have to make images for next time.
I capitulate. Yeah. Hey, look, my thesaurus is coming back.
Yes, indeed. See, now you're finally awake. So
Just in time.
thank you very much for joining us. As a reminder, drop us an email to thehub@sanctum.media to get in for our now double drawing copy of House on the Borderland and Robin Wayne Bailey's Swords Against the Shadowland, which is, to my knowledge, the first ever licensed Fawford and Grey Mouser story after Liber died, but not the last, thanks to Tales from the Magician's Skull.
Right. And yeah. Merity Christmas. Yeah, Merry Christmas. I could do that. I could do that.
Oh. Oh, Eric. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening for another episode of the Sanctum Secorum reading room and pun chamber, apparently. And we will see you all again on Tuesday, December 20th at the same time. Until then, be inspired.